hooping the fabric can be one of those things you just have to practice. So I'm going to show you some tricks that I use when hooping my fabric up. First off, if you are actually working with a piece that you need to get perfectly centered in your hoop, or at least have a center point for where the design is going to be, start off by taking a ruler and putting a perfectly perpendicular line. So if this is my center right here, then I can go ahead and go across like that. Now this is a purple vanishing marker, so if I don't do my embroidery right away, these lines are going to disappear. But what I can do is go ahead and use this and get it lined up with the marks of my hoop, so I know I actually get it in there straight. Now remember, this machine, the Husqvarna Viking Designer Ruby Royale, has the ability to hoop crooked. So even if I'm not perfectly straight, I can just go ahead and hoop it and not worry about it. Yay! But sometimes it's nice to get it in there at least halfway where you want it to be. Now before I actually hoop, I'm going to have cut out 2 pieces of stabilizer. Yes, I do use 2 layers of stabilizer for every project I do, if not more. And I also use some spray adhesive. I'm going to spray the layers of stabilizer together and then go ahead and use, this is actually Mettler's Web Bond. I like it because as I spray, I don't get overspray on my machine or my cabinet if I'm really careful. Some of those other sprays kind of get a little crazy and you definitely have to clean things a little later. But I do like it. It has almost like it reminds me of Spider-Man. So you know how he has this little web that he shoots out of his fingers, and it's more direct, and that is what this is all about. By spraying the layers together, did you notice I sprayed the stabilizer? That way, when I go, my spray adhesive doesn't come off over on my fabric. I'm going to give this a little bit more spray. There we go. And then it's like a big Post-it note. You can definitely just get it to attach and adhere right where you want it to be. And then notice, as I pull across the fabric, even on my bias, it doesn't stretch. So it makes it a lot easier to actually hoop up. Now notice when you look at your hoop, you have a line here and here, little marks. Those are going to be your center mark, and then here and here. You also want to be able to read the 360 by 200. Always have that closest to your body. So if I was going to hoop, so that's fairly equal here. We can go ahead and do that. Notice I have the inner hoop on top of my fabric, and then what I'm going to do is just go ahead and bring my outer hoop. This is why you need lots of room to hoop. And you also want to hoop standing up. It's a lot easier. Don't do it on your lap. You need a flat surface. But what I'm going to do is just lift this up, and before I do anything, I'm going to make sure that this hoop is, the release has been opened and the screw has been loosened. And then that way, when I go to put this in, it almost just kind of just eases right into the outer hoop. Now what I'm going to do is get the top part pushed in first. So I'm going to come up here, kind of slide that to the top. Coming off the edge of my table, I'm going to just pull open, and I can feel, because of how easy it is, it just slipped right in there. I hardly have any work to do, and the fabric stayed fairly straight as I had it held. Then next, go ahead and close the quick release button. If it doesn't want to close, go ahead and loosen your screw a little bit more, then close it. You can always come back and tighten it at the end, but don't force this close. What's nice is, the reason for that quick release is that when you're done, let's say you were going to hoop 3 more pieces that are cotton and 2 layers of stabilizer, all I have to do is release, put my new fabric in, and close it up. That way I don't have to be loosening and tightening the screw as much, and it really is a huge time saver. Next thing I want to do is just kind of show you, I actually take the hoop and just kind of with my thumbs on the inside, inner hoop, just push the hoop just a little past flush. Not a lot, just a little bit. And it helps make sure your hoop is all the way into each other. Kind of gives that last little bit of tighten all the way around. Here we go. There. Now, one thing that you will find that if you are working with some fabrics with the larger hoops, right here, the hoop is tight in the corners, but sometimes a little loose along the middles. And that's what these clips are for. I don't always use them, but boy, when there's the time I need to use them, I will pull them out so I can squeeze the hoops right here. And what you want to do is you line up these are the top part that you actually end up pinching, so this goes kind of the top part. And then there's a small part that eases in between these little notches. So when you look at it, there's like a little tongue that sits inside these little openings, and then they just squeeze the hoops together. Isn't that fantastic? So you can put those all around the hoop. You have plenty. I will warn you, one of these gets on the floor and you step on it, it kind of hurts, like almost worse than Legos. So keep those contained because they do sometimes want to pop off if you bump them. They kind of spring up. So just keep that in mind. Now, when all possible, always use the hoop size the machine recommends for you to stitch in. And so that means that if it's a smaller design, use a smaller hoop. And your machine will actually tell you which hoop to use. We also will be able to tell the machine which hoop we are using. So even if you are doing a small design and you are using the big hoop, you can override it and tell the machine you know what you're doing. So I always, if I can, work with a smaller hoop. And once again, then you don't need as much stabilizer, you're not wasting as much fabric, and you can get things in and out of a smaller hoop a little faster, and your machine will actually embroider a little faster when you are working with smaller hoop sizes. Kind of slows down just a little bit when you're working with the larger ones. So that is how it's going to look like if you're hooping for the smaller ones. And we'll show you some efficient ways throughout these videos of hooping so you don't always waste as much fabric as you see around here. So let's get started. Let's get the embroidery module on the machine and start to look around at what we're capable of doing with this fantastic machine.